thank you very much for coming in and being part of the Oral History.
Pleasure.
You've had such a rich and varied career over the years, but I'd like to talk a little bit about your earliest years. And I believe, in fact, you're a transplant. You actually came here with your family from England.
Yes, I guess I'm a part of a family that came over for £5 in 1953. So I came with my parents and my younger brother to Australia in 53.
And there was a bit of a toss-up between whether they would come here or Canada.
That's true. My parents didn't have any particular choice between Canada and America. They just wanted to get out of England, which was quite depressed after the war. But in the end, I think Australia prevailed because of the sunshine.
There was a film not long ago, you might have seen it, about British child migrants. Did you happen to see that film?
Yes, I did.
Did you identify much with the experiences of some of those children?
Not really, because I came out with my family. I didn't come out alone or with a group of children. I did have some difficulty transplanting into the Australian school scene, but once I settled down, I was okay.
When your family arrived here, where did they first settle?
Well, I can remember we had 2 weeks in Newtown, which at the time was quite a slum, and we couldn't believe the size of the Australian cockroach is. Then we moved to rented accommodation in Diamond Bay, Vaucluse, near the cemetery, South Ed Cemetery, and we stayed there for quite a while.
Your father was a musician. Did he earn his living that way when he came out here?
He found it very difficult when he came here. Firstly, you could only play as a musician in Australia if you joined the Musicians' Union. And then once you joined the Musicians' Union, there was a year that you weren't allowed to play, the first year.
So how could you earn a living?
Well, you couldn't. And I can well remember my father walking the streets looking for any work and coming home in the afternoon being quite depressed because there was a little bit of an economic slump in 53, 54, and he encountered it, and it was tough for him.
Did he say or express any reserve to the family about his decision to move the family out here during those years?
Not to my knowledge. We never had any discussions. We seemed to settle in quite well. My mother was a little bit... took her a while to settle in. She wanted to go back to the old country, I think, but that soon passed.
So in those early years, you went, I know, to Sydney Boys High, and what kind of scholar were you in those early years at school?
Well, it was interesting because I'd gone to third form in a grammar school in England and then transferred because of the way the years were set up to the end of second form in Australia. And the curriculums were different, so I was way ahead in some subjects and way behind in others. So I think I distinguished myself in my first year at Sydney Boys with the exams in coming 181st out of 184 or something like that. But I improved a lot after that.
Your desire to succeed probably was spurred from then on.
I think so.
What were your favourite subjects?
Pardon me. History, undoubtedly, but I also liked geography.
Were you, in those early years, beginning to form any sense of what kind of career you would have? Were you thinking even then that you might like to go into a career in law?
No, I wasn't. I actually wanted to be an architect. I used to like drawing up plans of buildings and houses and making models of them. And I well remember an interview with the master who was the careers advisor, Mr. Swan, I said to him I'd wanted to be an architect, and he said to me, no, your maths isn't good enough, you can forget that. So he said, well, what else do you want to do? And I said, I don't know, really. And he said, well, why don't you be a lawyer? Your Latin's not bad, you could do that. So I sort of fell into it.
So, following Sydney Boys High, you went straight to the university in Sydney?
I did, Sydney, yes.
And you were earning some shekels in the meantime as a tram conductor, I believe.
Well, that was the end of first year, actually, because I'd convinced myself that with all these brilliant students in first year law that I couldn't possibly pass and that I would fail. So I was determined that I would repeat the year, so I decided that I'd take a job as a tram conductor and save up as much money as I could. And I worked for 4 months as a tram conductor and then got a real surprise that I passed. So.
And that was the end of your career as a tram conductor?
That was the end of my career as a tram, which of itself was very interesting. We used to do the Bondi run every day, and that was quite fun.
There's now talk, of course, of bringing trams back to Sydney. Do you find that ironic?
I do, because there was the most wonderful system of trams in Sydney. It was all over the metropolitan area, and it was as good as Melbourne's, and now we lost it overnight.